Hey, everyone. Welcome to the latest podcast episode. This is your host, Terry Knight. And I'm so excited, guys. I've been waiting for weeks to talk to this power couple here, Kass and Mike. If you ever heard about them, just Google them. They'll come right up real easy. But they're very successful in the business space. I mean, they launched golf.com, sold it for 25 million. Then they end up selling Buddy Media for over 745 million. And you guys invested in startups like Liquid Death and Scopely, which, I think exited for 5 billion. I mean, you guys really are what entrepreneurs want to be. And I feel like you guys can steer us in the right direction to be exactly model what you guys do. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us,
Thanks for
Terry.
having us.
No, well, thank you. So Kass and Mike, whoever wants to go first, just let people know who you are.
All right, I'll start. So Kass Lazerow, half of this team that you talked about, background in really kind of just operations and marketing, and always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was younger and build teams that could, make a huge impact and also had fun together.
Cool.
And Mike Lazerow, the back half of Kass and Mike, and longtime entrepreneur. Started my first company in college, Northwestern University, go Wildcats. I was a journalism major, even at the time. It's a long time ago, Terry. We're a little older than you. We're talking about 1992, 93. The internet posed a huge threat to journalism, and just went down a rabbit hole at journalism school. What's the internet going to do for the world? Started my first company in college, and then ended up, taking that one public right after we graduated. Then it crashed in the .com crash of 2000, and then jumped on board with Kass, golf.com, and we've now done 8 companies, 100 investments. Many have worked out, many have not worked out. We've made every mistake in the book. We've made a few good decisions or lucky decisions. And here we are. We basically, put together all of our cheat codes, 50 cheat codes that we think can help anyone, whether you run a pizzeria or an AI app company. And that's Shoveling Shit, a love story, both our love story and our love story to entrepreneurs.
Well, I love it. I love the title of the book, Shovel Shit. So that's very unique. Kass and Mike, how did you guys meet? I'm kind of curious on that background.
So I think I might have written this in the book, but I grew up in Mike's house. So I was really close best friends with Mike's older brother. He and I are the same age. Mike's a little bit younger. He likes to say a lot younger, but that's, not entirely true.
I don't look it, let's just say that.
I grew up there and always knew of Mike as this annoying little brother. We're talking like I'm 16 and he's 13. And fast forward, he's 22, I'm almost 26. And we go to our mutual friend's wedding, Kevin and Jill Kane. And I don't know, he asked me to dance. I said yes. He was funny. I was interested in the internet. He was too. And that was it.
Cool. I mean, you guys grew up together. I mean, to me, I think when couples grow up and they get married and they have this kind of long journey, I've seen it on both sides where if they work together, it could be a great compliment, but also bad. So how the hell, excuse my French, did you guys make it work to where you're working together and not, or maybe bumped heads, but how did you make it work?
Mike, do you want to answer?
Yeah. I mean, all I'll say is that any co-founder relationship is difficult. And after witnessing over 100 directly, right, through our investments and through just friends who are entrepreneurs, a lot of our friends are entrepreneurs, and 15% of all companies are started by husband, wife, or relatives, right? So think about your local restaurants you love, or laundromats, or service companies. And I've come to realize that if you know how to work with someone, work through issues, communicate clearly, it's going to be a good relationship. If you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to listen, most importantly, and you have skill sets that overlap, it can be very difficult. So married couples who start businesses together, or if you're dating, which we did, our first company we were dating, we do not have a monopoly on difficult co-founder relationships. Every co-founder relationship is difficult. I think if you can work together to parent, to build a life, you can work together business. And so we've always thought it was weird that more couples didn't work together, because it's been such an important part of our life. And I think it's one of our superpowers, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless they had the real conversations about, can they do it? Do they have skill sets that complement each other? Do they respect each other? Do they like each other? Right. And all of that, we checked the boxes, and it just felt right from the beginning.
Gotcha. No, with my wife, I love being with her every day. So I can relate to what you guys kind of did there. You guys said you started dating for your first company. Kass was, I'm assuming, handling operations and marketing.
Yep.
Like, Mike, what were you doing? Like, how do you guys mesh that out? Like, I'm sure Mike had some opinions about what you were doing, Kass, and vice versa. And then you guys are going, back and forth.
Well, we actually don't second guess or get that involved in the other one's lane. And so if you think about great teammates, I don't know if you played sports, Terry, or if you're on any other teams, but the teammates that were the best teammates, you never have to think about, right? You knew they were doing the work. You knew they were eating well. You knew they were getting rest. You knew they were going to show up knowing the plays, right? The team members who you worried about were the ones you didn't know, the wild cards. And Kass has always showed up. She does not disappoint. She lives her life with a to-do list. And I built a trust that if she said that she was going to do something, it would get done, which is rule number one. So cheat code number one: if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Do it.
Right? Now, Kass isn't the salesperson. She's not going to find the money. She's not the creative visionary who can, figure out what the business model is and what the product market fit is. And so I think, I'm not going to speak completely for her, but I think she's had confidence that we would find customers. Yeah. We would find a market. We would find a business model. We'd raise money, all the stuff that I did, right? And so typically a single founder, solo founder has to do all of that. Mm-hmm. For us, we get the benefit of two people without giving away the equity.
True.
Which we'd like. Like, why give away 50% of the equity?
I mean, that's why, it in the family. Terry, that's why I always say, like, I don't know why more couples don't do it. It is a superpower, and there's such great benefits.
No, I agree. I totally agree. For your first company, golf.com, did you guys have full equity, half and half? Like, you guys just...
So we had a third co-founder. So really, our co-founder, Mike Casper, and I started it. And Mike was kind of rolling off of the company that he started and sold in college. And I, of course, had a, competitive advantage when it came to recruiting because we were living together. And I basically said, like, I need you. You understand this vision of how to monetize this business, because he was syndicating content himself. And that was what our business model was for golf.com, to make money. And he jumped on board, and it was perfect split. Again, like, the three of us had no overlapping skills.
That's like a best compliment to have between you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how long did it take for you guys to sell golf.com? Like, what was...
It took 7.5 long years, because when we started it, it was 1998. By December of 99, we sold it to chipshot.com. And that company made custom golf clubs in Silicon Valley. If you can believe that, very expensive place to be doing that. And this is the height of the internet, right? Web 1.0. You have e-toys being valued at billions. And we thought, our entire board, which consisted of really just friends and family, angel investors, we thought this was it. Like, we had hit the jackpot. So we sold it to 100% stock deal to Chipshot. They were going to go public. They were Sequoia backed in April of 2000. By March, Sequoia pulled the funding, And they called us out of the blue. They called me and said, sorry to say this, but we're going into bankruptcy and you're being pulled down with us. And we didn't have control of bank accounts at that time. So that was really tough. And we had to dig deep, talk about shoveling shit, start the whole company over, get new financing, which the three of us hit the road and we're staying in like hotels, like 1-room hotel rooms with bulletproof like glass where you checked in because we had zero money. Started the whole company back up again, waited for literally the world to kind of come back around after that crash. And then Mike, of course, with his amazing skill set of sales, he basically turned the company around, and we sold it to Time Warner in January of 2006.
Oh, wow. Talk about a big comeback. I mean, first off, I think, no offense, with if something tanked that bad, I think I would freak out. And then my mind will just like blank. How the heck did you guys just shoveled it out?
I was angry. I mean, I think I know I'm really competitive and I say this a lot. I don't like to lose more than I like to win. And I just couldn't believe that we somehow missed what was happening, the due diligence, how much money they had in the bank. It was just one of those things that I just couldn't bear. And I think the three of us just thought, we can do this. We can pull this out and, we can just start over. And we had the gumption to do it.
A lot of dedication. Ooh, kudos to you guys.
Thanks.
So in 2006, you guys sold it. Congrats to that. I'm sure that was like a big rewarding thing for you guys. I'm assuming, because I've talked to a lot of founders like you guys that sold, that's never good enough. You guys look for the next thing. You guys want to do more. So what was that next step?
Mike,
it was never about the money for us. And we say that at a time when, everyone is infatuated with money. But if you think about early internet, I started my first company when there were only 13 million people on the internet. So if you were to start a business, it probably isn't the place that you start, right? If it's just about money, there are other ways to make money. And then if you go into the internet, the early things that were working on the internet, let's just say, it wasn't kind of like golf or some of this stuff that we're talking about right now. It was not a great place and it wasn't a very commercial place. And so, when we sold golf.com, a few things happened. One is Time Warner, which existed in, a pretty strong form at the time. They owned Sports Illustrated and all of these like titles that were big brands at the time. They wanted me specifically to come and work out of the New York office to help build the new internet business for not only Golf Magazine, which is where golf.com lived, but also Sports Illustrated and some of these brands. And so the most important thing it did is it got us to New York. We were no longer in, towns that didn't have a vibrant internet scene. Mm-hmm. We're from DC, we're in Chicago. Neither of them had investors, successful startups. Where in New York, that's where you saw DoubleClick and some of the early internet companies really grow, other than AOL in the DC area, which was actually pretty big. And so it got us to New York. And while I was at golf.com, we were, planning on having our third kid. And it all came to a head on May 24th, 2007, where Kass was delivered our third child through C-section. So it was a planned C-section, which makes it just easier on the dad, right? It's like you go to the hospital. It's just like, it's a very barbaric procedure, but for the dad, you sit in the waiting room, and I was just reading on my BlackBerry. So BlackBerry was as hot as the iPhone was.
You actually were with me in the surgery, but after I'm in recovery and he's just waiting for me.
Yeah, for part of it. They let the dad in. Our first child, I went in with a full video camera, which was kind of crazy. By the third kid, and I think kind of like legal reform and everything, they let me come in for a second and then whisked me out, right? Yeah. I think it was like a liability thing. But regardless, I'm sitting in the recovery room waiting for Kass, and I read this news story of Mark Zuckerberg launches the Facebook platform at F8, which is their developer conference. I was on Facebook early because of my experience in the student space with University Wire, my first company, and Student Advantage. And I thought it was one of the more important developments of the internet. And immediately, literally immediately, I said, the internet just got social. Everything that you like to do now, you can do with your friends, play games, send gifts easier, obviously tag photos. And this was a time when we were all excited about social media. It was before its impact on democracy and mental health. And, it hadn't played out exactly the way we had hoped, but everyone was very optimistic that this was a force of good and an incredible business opportunity. So Kass did a great job delivering. She comes back into the room and I immediately shout, I got it. And she's like, I got what, food for me? Or no, I got my next business idea or our next business idea. So to answer your question, we weren't necessarily looking and we weren't saying to ourselves, 25 million wasn't enough. Because to us, growing up in the suburbs of DC, 25 million was a number we couldn't even really comprehend. That's such a big number, right? But we knew our journey as entrepreneurs weren't over, just like we know today it's not over. And that's why we jumped in at this intersection of we had time. Our ears were open, our eyes were open. We were taking information, looking for opportunities. And we nailed Web 1.0. And when Web 2.0 came around, we just knew this was the next trend.
The next trend, indeed. Kudos to you, Kass, for C-section, third child there.
Thank you.
Any woman that goes through labor, because my wife, we have a 2-year-old now. So kudos to all women out there.
It's brutal. Yeah. Thank you.
So how long did it take for you to get back into starting this new venture, Buddy Media, since you had to do a child?
Mike said that to me. I was a little shocked and then kind of remembered who Mike was at the moment. And then by late August, I was building IKEA desks in an office that I had rented on 60th and Broadway. So he started trying to find, basically a salesperson that could come help us. And I was trying to find kind of a utility player. I had our daughter, Vivian, she was with me, obviously, I was nursing and I was building desks. And so less than 3 months.
Man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's cool though.
It is
That's
crazy.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And so, for anyone out there, you guys just kind of laid that blueprint down. You created this company, Buddy Media, started from scratch, rented out some stuff. Mike had to go find a salesperson.
Yep.
How the heck, you've done it once before, but what does it take to actually start building a business once you start from zero?
Well, so, I think one of the things that, the audience could benefit from, especially if they're thinking about starting a company and they have a good idea, is really saying to themselves, is this idea going to make it, right? Can I greenlight this through a framework that makes sense? And Mike and I came up with something in our book called the Go Gauge, right? It's 5 simple questions. Mike, why don't you go through it? The 5 simple questions we came up with, but it helps anyone say, okay, this is an idea that makes sense and I'm going to move forward, or I'm just going to say no and fold.
Yeah. So the Go Gauge is something we didn't know we were using as entrepreneurs, but we really built it as investors because we love entrepreneurs and we needed something to take the emotion out of the room, which for entrepreneurs, and what I'm about to say is true, you come up with an idea and you just love it. Yeah. It's this is the best thing ever. I'm going to do it. I'm going out. I'm getting the domain name. I'm getting the URL. I'm getting the brand. I'm going to build an app. If I build it, they'll come, right? Yeah. And you have this, what Guy Kawasaki called in his book, which a long time ago, kind of this seizure, this entrepreneurial seizure where it takes over your brain. And so when we kept meeting with entrepreneurs, we would love it. And then we'd be like, whoa. Is it really a business that we can, do? And so what it is basically, what's the product? which is most importantly, what are you going to be selling? Why is it different? So like, why is it different? It's important because you have to communicate it, right? And if it's just the same old thing, then it's really, not going to work. And then it's how many customers are there? So not market size, even though we'll get there with this question, but who's actually buying it and how many of them are. So at golf.com, the golf business was a very big business, but if you take tee times and travel out of it, because we didn't own a golf course, right? We were never going to get that revenue necessarily. We couldn't count that revenue as kind of our customers. And then it comes down to sales and marketing. A lot of entrepreneurs underestimate how hard it is to get the product, into consumers' heads, right? Into their consideration set. And then it's how are you going to deliver it, which, we did a bunch of deals that had some logistics. And, we realized that kind of, it's not only how do people find it, but can we get it to them cost effectively? If you think of Liquid Death, one of our companies, putting water in a can, started in Austria, right? Like it was the only place that we could find that could put flat water in a can.
What?
And then all of a sudden shipping it to the US during COVID was expensive. And so that distribution, and then once it gets to the US, we got to get into stores. And then once it's in stores, we got to get people to pay attention and buy it, right? So all of a sudden, you have to think about this kind of operation side, which as internet entrepreneurs, we never really focused on. And then it really comes down to the last one is, do the financials, especially early on, do the financials make sense on the back of a napkin? So you may have to pivot, but if it costs X to build it and you sell it for less than X, it's not going to be a good business, right? So like how much money is left over after your cost of goods sold? And this sounds basic, but like we meet with thousands of entrepreneurs every year, right? As investors, what we do, I'm meeting with 3 today. Let's just say there are some that don't get that concept. And so after you pay for the cost of goods sold, what's left over to pay for all the rest of the company, right? The general and administrative expenses. And so you don't have to go to business school. I went to journalism school, but you have to understand unit economics. And if you can't make money off one unit of your whatever you're selling, you're just going to blow through a lot of money if you're selling millions of units, right? And this whole like scale it first and figure out the business model later works for maybe 1/1000th of 1% of all companies.
Ooh. That's very small.
Yeah. Hope isn't a strategy, right?
Well, you make us think, right? Logically,
Right.
and what we have to kind of map out. So, Mike, you brought up a good point. But Mike mentioned marketing and Kass, that's like your lane.
Yep.
How the
Yes.
heck did you guys blow up Buddy Media to sell it?
So
and
I think,
expand?
you talk about like the best marketers in the world and they make you feel something, right? It's not necessarily the product, but it's how the product makes you feel. So one of the things I realized early on is that and we had hundreds of competitors. This was the social media space. This was a new market. They were popping up left and right. The only way that we could succeed was obviously 2 things, sales and making ourselves look bigger. And so my job that whole time was to create a buzz around Buddy Media. So I hired within the first 12 employees a head of PR. We started, marketing day one. We started creating this brand that despite however many pivots we were going to do, which ended up being 4, that the brand would last, that the mission, the values, the core mission, everything was going to last despite the pivots. And then we just started going out there. We had huge events. We would do giveaways to, all of our clients. Literally like $500 gift cards to clients that were coming to events and things like that. That's how we spent the dollars. We would go to events like South by Southwest, which is super expensive. And Austin really then, shoots up all the prices with like hotels and things. So, but we would spend all of our money making a big splash. right? So Mike would be speaking, or our other co-founder, Jeff Raghavan, would be speaking, but we'd own the staircase that everyone would walk up and down at the airport, right? Or in every, we did this incredible marketing campaign, which was controversial to our board, $1 million budget to do real print campaign in every airport between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And it basically was the move of, you're going to see me here with all the other big brands. So you're going to see me with IBM, you're going to see me with Apple, all these other companies that had the big money. And you're going to think, holy crap, they're doing as well. I want to work with them. And so when you think about marketing, Terry, it's about punching up when you start, right? It's about really thinking about creative ways you can spend the little budget you have in the beginning. But just because you have a little budget doesn't mean that you don't want to make a big splash. So go to that conference. Conferences are great in the beginning because you network, you have a chance to speak and have thought leadership. You can sponsor things that are cheap, like the bag drop on every, hotel door, right? We love doing coffee cups. They were cheap, but everybody drinks coffee. Things like that, so that when you look around, there's a 360 marketing message that, oh my God, Buddy Media is here, right? And they have something to say, and holy crap, they have money. So they obviously could afford this, so they must be the biggest player in the game.
Well said. I love that approach, and I think a lot of people don't take that advantage. They do marketing, but not to that mass.
Yeah.
And I think that's very key. So that's pretty cool. So for you guys, Kass and Mike, like Buddy Media, you guys blew that up. How long before you guys decided to say, hey, I think it's time to exit, or, to get to that point?
I think it was a question. I'll let Mike answer this one, but it's really a question of like sales, right? We had hit 50 million in annual recurring revenue. And at that point, you have to figure out your options. Like our next goal was 100 million, right, Mike? I think it was, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we didn't think a lot about exit. And the reason is because we went from, literally 5 years, we went from 0 to 50 million in annual recurring revenue. It meant hiring hundreds of people, opening up offices, I think 8 offices, 1 in Singapore, 1 in London, throughout the US. And the reason is social media, which we were the largest marketing platform on top of Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. It was called Twitter at the time. It was global. And so our clients were Unilever and Ford and P&G and all these like huge companies, 9 out of the top 10 global brands. And so we were just like shoveling shit. We were like, we got 3 kids. We're like hiring, we're firing, opening up offices. I'm speaking at events. I don't even know where I am half the time, right? I'm waking up, on planes and having to run to meetings. And, the worst was like this 19-hour flight to Singapore. Then I'd have like literally 8 meetings right when I landed. And I'd be stressed out on the plane, so I couldn't sleep. And, 19 hours in a tin can, I was like, that feeling actually makes me sick right now, knowing that I can't sleep. I'm about to land and I have like 18 hours of events, including a launch party at night, right? And so I started to just feel this tingly feeling that it could be time, because I'm getting these inbound calls. My friend at Salesforce, Ryan Ate, who was at the time heading up their corporate development and ventures business with John Samorjai, who's now leading it. And he's, Mark wants to talk to you.
Mark Benioff,
right? I'm like, okay, it's interesting. Like, I've been kind of hiring people from Salesforce and kind of tweaking him and the Wall Street Journal about what they're doing in social and how it's kind of a joke. And then I start getting calls from Google. And so I fly out there and meet with like their whole team, Nikesh Arora, who's now the CEO of Palo Alto Networks, has done an incredible job growing that business. He's heading up strategy and corporate development. Hey, we want to talk. And the first term sheet I got was from Google, actually. And it was $100 million more to start. And I was sitting in Mark's townhouse in about 5 years to the month that we came up with the idea. And I'm demoing the software, and he just says flat out, I want to buy the business. Here's what I'm willing to pay. I can't go any higher. I'm just gonna have to tell the board. But do we have a deal? I said, I got to talk to my investors, got to talk to the board. Put your best foot forward. I think we can get something done. And fast forward, we had offers from 2 written offers. We had 3 others circling, one with an incoming offer. And I said, don't bother. We're going to go with Salesforce. And the reason is we'd modeled the whole business off of Salesforce. And, Mark had written a book that became the basis of what we were doing. We loved his 1-1-1 philanthropic model, and there was no anti-competitive issues. Google, at the time, everything they were buying was getting caught up in Washington for antitrust issues. Okay. They owned their search business, basically owned search, but they had also bought Sabre, which is the travel, booking system. They, had bought Waze, which now gave them all this other stuff. And so the best way to sell a company is for someone to buy it and not proactively sell it. And we just built a reputation, a culture, and a business that some pretty impressive companies wanted. And the numbers would forever change not only our lives, but the lives of our kids, generations, and most importantly, the lives of our employees, young employees who had taken a risk, not going to Goldman Sachs, not going to Facebook, not going to these big companies, working for, this husband-wife couple. And now we're going to make, 7 figures in their 20s, which is the greatest feeling in the world, to be the leader of a company where young employees see life-changing results.
100%. I love that approach. So you guys sold it. So congrats to that. 2 businesses back to back. My question is, because you guys are so successful, and I ask this to each guest, but you guys have 3 kids by the time you're exiting 2 companies. Only have one 2.5-year-old, and he's full of joy, just full-time work, love him. But how the heck did you guys build such great businesses, was able to sell them, and be a mom and dad?
It wasn't easy. So I'll take this one and say there is no balance, right? My theory is you can only do one thing very well at a time, and everything else will suffer in some way. Now you can minimize that suffering, right? But we knew that Mike was not around as much because he was the guy that was going to travel. And I was the one that was going to we had that conversation. I was going to be home base and covering everything there. And even then I was working a lot, and my mind was always thinking about the company and the employees. I think when we look back, and thankfully we have this perspective now, we have 3 incredible kids who are doing well, each of them doing their own thing. And, a cheat code for me that I would say to other moms out there is, if you can start a company, do it when they're younger, because there's a lot of people out there that can support them, when they're really little. I'm not saying that you can afford it, but, we had a babysitter once we could afford it. We had, there's daycare, there's school. We had this incredible school that they had after school programs, even for 3 and 4-year-olds. And bigger kids get bigger problems. And you'll see this, Terry, as the kids have more complex relationships at school and start to kind of take in everything around them, those conversations become more tricky, and you want to be the ones giving advice or hearing them out. You don't then want it to be a babysitter, right? You don't want it to be, someone at school. You want to be the ones that can help them through that, because you're the ones that are providing them their morals, right? And their values. So there was no balance, and we did kind of sacrifice the kids when they were younger. We never missed anything big. We saw every painful performance. When they were little, we did. But we did miss a lot in between. And my other piece of advice is kids need 45 minutes from you of undivided time where they can decide what they want to do with you when they're little. And if you can give that to them, you don't need hours and hours and hours. They just need 45 minutes.
Is that per year or per day?
I can say I wish it were per year. No, it's per day. So, easy for us to look back and say that now, but that is something that I realized.
But it's also, parents beat themselves up, especially moms, about like, am I being perfect? Am I spending too much time at the company? And at least why we wanted to write the book is, entrepreneurship at the end of the day is really about embracing this uncertainty, embracing the doubt, embracing the fear, and embracing everything that's kind of, has impregnated the question that you asked, right? Like company, kids, how do you do both? Like, I'm going to give up stuff at the company if I'm spend too much time with the kids, or kids are going to get screwed up if I'm not there, right? And so we think that it's not about getting rid of those fears. It's about making the best decisions within this world of fear. And even when everyone says it's too risky, if you do your work, it passes the smell test of the Go Gauge, you're able to create a company that, will, I guarantee you over time, far outperform even your expectations, like wild expectations as an entrepreneur, and build a life that has purpose and a few close personal relationships. We don't have that many because we were always working, but I think we have close relationships.
Yeah.
And a life free from being chained to a desk, like you, Terry, right? You control your day, and just understand that there's an impact to your life. And here's some cheat codes that worked for us that hopefully give you some time back, hopefully kind of let you think about how to integrate philanthropy and impact in what you do every day, so it's not a weekend activity. And the last thing I'll say about kids, finally, I think I believe this. Our youngest is 18. Okay. Whatever you tell them, assume it just goes through one ear, out the other.
That's a good
Anything
approach.
you do, any example you set lasts forever.
Agreed. And I would add to that what Mike's getting at here is, and we beat ourselves up about this, but they saw us being dedicated to something, giving it our all, not giving up. All the kind of values that you want to teach children, you need vehicles through which you can teach, right? And, some people have, religion, and they go to Sunday church or a synagogue every week. School is a great place that teaches values and morals, but you can also do it. And they got to see that, and they got to see our hard work. And I think it's instilled in them. I mean, I look at all three of them, and they work really hard, and they don't have a give up mentality, which is awesome.
I was going to lead to my next question. I think Kass just answered it, but maybe you have a different take. Because you guys are so successful, exiting several businesses. You guys are helping out investors and entrepreneurs. You guys have 3 kids. The youngest is 18. And how old are the other 2? How old are
23 and 21.
So 18, 21, and 23.
Yep.
What did you guys want to instill in them, or what have you taught them so they can implement what you guys have done over the course of your journey so they can be successful and do the same?
I think, I'm kind of like thinking about all of them, that you're going to have skill. I mean, for me, it's this, you're going to have skill sets, right? So your job as a young person and young adult is to figure out your talents. There's nothing else. You're not supposed to figure out who you're going to be. You're not supposed to be like, I should know I want to be a lawyer or a doctor, any of that. You're supposed to concentrate on your talents, and the talents will lead you to finding purpose, right? And know what you don't know so that you surround yourself with people that kind of fill in your gaps. And the second thing is hard work. Hard work counts. Effort counts. It makes a big difference. Mike said it earlier that, you do the right things and you focus on the right priorities every day, every week, every month, every year, good things happen. Hard work is the reason why it's called hard is because it's called consistency. So I love that our kids can see that this isn't an overnight success story. This is a 30-year journey, and we're always going to work hard. There's no shortcuts.
No shortcuts. I love it. I love it. What about you, Mike? Same thing. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with all that. I think, the whole idea of priorities is important. And, I think we have instilled kind of 3 priorities that I think have stuck. One is like family. So at the end of the day, there's nothing more important. Like, it's your support system. You got to have each other's back, which wasn't easy when they're like, 6 and 8 and fighting like crazy, right? Yeah. But it works out. Don't worry. It just let them do their thing. Boys are going to be boys and girls are going to be girls. Number 2 is health. We've since, I think, letting our health get away from us as entrepreneurs, we really doubled down and are proactive about making sure both our physical and mental health are taken care of. So eating okay. I don't drink. Kass doesn't drink a lot. We exercise.
Sleep.
Yeah, we move. And then the third is virtue in work. Like, there's virtue in hard work. Like, that is where, as Kass said, you find your purpose. And that's, as I hadn't really thought about it, but looking back to answer your question, those are the 3 things. And what's really cool is they're seeing us do it again, because we have this new beginning, right? Even though we've done all this stuff, people are like, well, why are you hustling so much? Why did you write a book? We were in Dallas last week speaking to the United Way. We did a 3-hour live stream with Gary Vee yesterday, National Shovel Day. And we went from 0 kind of distribution, right, to like now a healthy community at the Founders Farm community, and very significant traction at the book. So they're like, wow, like over a year and a half ago, you committed, made it a priority, wrote the book, launched all the digital stuff, launched the strategy, and they see us working. Mm-hmm. And we're working because we think that the ideas we have here can impact a lot of people, and we want them to experience it. And it's not just the book. When you buy the book, you get access to our entrepreneur toolkit, which is everything we use to launch our businesses. Budgets, planning documents, like the Go Gauge. You get access to Founders Farm, to our interview with Seth Meyers, to like we did a master class for some of the bulk packages. So the idea is that you're not buying a book. Books are just, we didn't write this book to make money, right? We're donating the money to Cycle for Survival. But we wrote it because it's a great format for people who want to get serious about up-leveling their life at work, at home, and getting some of their time back, working smarter. They're going to work just as hard, but hopefully that push that you're doing is going to push it much further, the rock. And, it's all about legacy. The first 50 years, I think it was about earning. So earning degrees and reputations and money. And this next 50 years very much feels like impact. Like, can we impact people's lives in a way where they're like, wow, I really got a lot from my interaction with Kass and Mike, either in person or through some of their content. And that's feeling really good. I mean, frankly, it's feeling, like Mark Benioff used to say all the time, that philanthropy is the best drug, which I agree with. It feels great. But I think helping others in this business, world, it comes close, right? Like seeing entrepreneurs exit for $5 billion after you'd provide them their initial money to get started. Mm-hmm. Like, how awesome it is to see like people who you've seen struggle for 10 years Like, it is awesome. And we just want more people to experience that as entrepreneurs. And we will be clapping and cheering from the sidelines, helping them.
Well, I love that. You guys are very cool. I think you guys can impact a lot of people. Mike, Kass, you guys do have a book coming out, Shoveling Shit, forwarded by Gary Vee himself. You guys had a live yesterday, so that's pretty dope. Um, in a nutshell, what can people expect from the book? Mike kind of just gave a breakdown, but
Yeah,
it's going to help out a lot of people, whether they want to start or grow their businesses and everything in
that's right.
between.
That's right. It's going to be cheat codes, right? We wrote it with stories so that you can actually see how our cheat codes play out. And we talk about the things we didn't do well. We talk about the things that did go well. And then after each chapter, there's bullet points of the cheat codes, right? So that you can always refer back to them. And we go through everything as picking a co-founder, funding, which we call feeding the baby, to how do you market and punch up? How do you build the cult in your culture, right? How do you lead, by example? What are the things that are the glue within a company? How to hire people, how to pivot, which is one of the most important chapters, because whatever you start with is not going to be what you end up with. So real practical advice. It's not, it's not your regular business book that has been written 1,000 times before. It's really what we call like cheat codes, so you don't step in the crap.
I actually love it. You said over 50 cheat codes. To me, it's like a blueprint. I think that's all you need, guys. So just get this book here. And you guys have a website, shovelshit.com.
Shovelingshit.com.
Shovelingshit.com. And that's where you can actually pre-order the book, right?
Yes.
And get digital assets, which, tools, calculators.
Yep.
I mean, dang, everything, guys, all in one place.
Yep.
I think that's the best way. And Kass and Mike, what's the best way for people to connect to you guys, to look at your content, reach out to you? Because you guys are
just Kass and Mike on Instagram is probably the best. And they're all, if you go to shovelingshit.com, everything's there. Really easy to get in touch with us. And, we want nothing more for every entrepreneur than what happened to us. A lot of luck, a lot of hard work, and just to see the gap between your reality and your dreams close, and, live the life you want.
Cool. I love it. Kass and Mike, what's next for you guys? Like, do you guys got anything going on exciting the rest of the year?
You sound like my mother. She's like, why are you writing the book? What's next? You have a big plan. Kass, what's our plan? Because I really don't know.
I mean,
we're doing a lot of speaking. I know
we're doing a lot of speaking. We're going to be empty nesters. So I think that's going to be really fun.
That's going to be awesome.
Mike's really, we're both really excited.
23 years of kids in the house.
Yeah.
Let me out.
Yeah. And I think, I think again, this is going to be about just, I think, helping others. And I want to figure that out. I think obviously there's some great, investment opportunities, but we're heads down right now trying to get this book into as many hands as possible. So, we want entrepreneurs. Yeah. Pizza places.
We might up pizza places.
Mike's favorite thing to talk about.
I love pizza.
He loves pizza. There's never going to be a slice.
Pizza places.
Yeah.
Pizza's good. Pizza's always good. All right, cool. Mike and Kass, one last question I'd like to ask all guests is, during your journey, I mean, you guys built 2 great businesses. What kept you going every day when you wanted to give up? Whether it's now, beginning, in between.
I think for me, it's the concept of making a work environment that people like to come to work. So I really have my cup filled when I see a room full of people working hard, but also laughing together and building friendships. We are called buddies for a reason. And everybody at Buddy Media, I'll give you an example. We used to ride as a company. We're the first corporate sponsor of Cycle for Survival way back in, 2010. And we kept doing it. Obviously, Mike and I have done it now for 17 years. But we invited as many buddies back as they could. This is 12, 13 years later after we sold the company. And our last event, we did the startup ride for New York City at Cycle for Survival. 35 buddies showed up. Nice. And that's 12, 13 years later. So I like building teams. That's what kept me going. The laughter, the belly laughs. What about you, Mike?
So mine was much simpler. Mine is a, fear of failure, really. Like the fear of it not working out drives me so much harder than the promise of riches or success. And what also would keep me going is rejection. So I have on my desk most of the rejection letters I've ever received. Colleges, jobs, and there's over 100 of them. So, I know every investor who said no. I think I remember their email address. I remember every investor who pulled a term sheet. I remember every employee who quit, right? Because I took that as like, if it was an unexcused, like meaning like if we did something like, okay, but if good people left, there was something that we were doing that's not right. And it really hit me hard. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that everyone's motivated in different ways. As an entrepreneur, you got to figure out what motivates someone. And for me, it's kind of like, I don't want to fail. I don't want to go bankrupt. I don't want to have to go get a job. I don't want to be homeless, right? Yeah. And those are real thoughts early on in our career.
I love it. I love it from both you guys here. The one and only Kass and Mike guys in the house. Please check out the new book, Shoveling Shit. I love the title. Once again, check it out. I'll have the links below. Kass and Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you. And everyone, to the next episode. Peace out.